Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. Having relationships or getting involved in a relationship, no matter what it looks like or who it's with, has its risk and its rewards. The risk is being hurt. Getting hurt is sort of a rite of passage in life because none of us escape this life without experiencing the burn and wound of something that doesn't get resolved in a relationship or in your mind and heart. And because that pain can leave such a lasting impact in the mind and heart, even physically triggering physical distress, you and I are taking a one-on-one deep dive into what it means to be hurt. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to let go when pain has entered into your relationship. This is a part of a two-part series. Today, we're talking about the hurt itself and how to begin to let go. And next week, we'll lean into what happens if you hold a grudge. But let's get started right now. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. All right, we've all had this experience where we truly enjoy being around someone or we truly love them. And something occurs, whether it's a misunderstanding or it's a true act that could hurt us or that does hurt us. And we stand back and we sort of question. We question what's wrong with us. We wonder why things don't work out. And we feel this big well of physical and emotional pain. And it just strikes this chord within us. It's hard. You know, a person that you love, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or even a family relationship, that person has the ability to strike you right at the core where you question your worth and your abilities and even just yourself. They make you doubt everything. And in that, there is this deep feeling of not being able to catch your breath. And when that happens, a lot of times we'll talk to our friends, we'll talk to other people, and they'll just say, focus on something else. And it's such a counterproductive piece of advice. Because the truth is, getting over someone that hurt you actually takes more work than you think. Okay. Why are we talking about this? Well, I had an experience this past week that reminded me of how much your emotions can dysregulate you and how much the stories in our heads can bring us to a place of just emotional pain, of physical pain, of mental pain. And let's be honest, I hear every single day in session about how someone else has hurt the person that's talking. So we all experience this. As I just said, none of us are getting out of this life without feeling the burn of someone else's hurt. And the truth is, how you get over someone who hurt you is a little surprising. And many of us try to do these things, but we don't necessarily have the correct orders or steps. And so that's what I want to talk about. So let's talk about emotional pain. So let me give you a definition. You know, I love that. So emotional pain is hurt or pain that originates from a non-physical source. So it can be a result of the actions of someone else or an experience. It can come from regret or loss. It can even result in underlying mental health conditions like depression or anxiety. But emotional pain is really this unpleasant feeling, this space where you feel very negatively impacted. But if we take a moment to explore what's happening within our mind and our hearts, our bodies, when we do experience pain, what actually can happen is the exploration can lead us into growth. and to healing and to resiliency. So that's also why I wanted to talk about what we can do when someone hurts us. Let me give you a quick example of how small something can be. So I'm an adult, right? We're all adults here. And it's really funny. I had received word that somebody who I trusted, who I really considered a deep friend, had done something that seemed so counterproductive, so counterintuitive, so counter to who they are and who I believe them to be as a human, that when I heard it, I was extremely dysregulated. So much so that all of my therapy tools, everything that I teach, flew out the window, and I had to really sit back. I had to sit for a second and, one, recognize what I was feeling, and two, just get quiet. My feelings were hurt. And I realized that my feelings were hurt at such a level that I hadn't experienced that for a very long time. I particularly like to keep my circle kind of small. And this was someone who really had a front row seat to my life. And I had to sit back. And when I realized what was really happening, that I was hurting, I had to kind of calculate how I was going to move through this. How was I going to tackle the moment in the most peaceful, mindful, and centered way that I could get out of the emotional pain and also feel like I had resolution? And again, I see this every single day. And so I thought we need to talk about this, because unless you're in therapy, unless you have had some really good conflict resolution skill sets, classes, something, it's not likely that you go through all of these steps that I'm going to hand over, these tips, and find some really good, beautiful ways to find resolution for yourself. So let's get into that. What can you do when someone hurts you? How can you address it? How can you get over it? How can you release it and not stay in that pain and confusion and anger and, like I said, building into next week, grudge? By the way, I didn't get there. But I just want you to know that's possible, right? So the first thing that I would say to you is say what you need to say after you have paused. The first critical step in getting over pain is being able to express yourself. This is so important. This is something that many of us will say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause more pain. Or we kind of go all in and we're hot-headed with it. We want to explain our position. We want to understand what's happening. We want to even engage in victimhood a lot of times because we've been hurt. You will pay, right? Because remember, the human brain likes to have patterns. It needs explanation. And so when we're hurt, we'll often launch ourselves into the experience. But if you sit back and you think, what happened here? It gives you the ability to say what is necessary. For me, I set with pen and paper because that's my jam and that's how I do things. And it's what I encourage you to do because it's the most peaceful and grounded way to have expressions of pain and confusion and anger. And it keeps you out of threats or impulsive messaging or cursing or whatever it might be that could damage, as you've heard me say, borrow more trouble. And so I will tend to I sat with myself. What is it that I need to say? Once I personally have an understanding of that, I can decide what's worth saying, right? And this is a tool that all of us need to employ. If I need to just say something, get something off my chest, maybe it's best to do it in a buffer before I react. So the first thing that's so critical in getting over the hurt is say what you need to say. The second is to distance yourself. And you really are kind of doing that if you put your thoughts on paper. Because if you're going to go over to someone who hurts you, you may actually lose it, right? So instead, distancing yourself, putting the stopgap, building that wall, Stop being close to them, interacting with them, communicating with them, whether that is on text or phone or on any social media, but really taking the contact back. Because that contact, that back and forth, kind of rubs salt into the wound, as the saying goes, and you get stuck in the pain. It becomes more constant. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me say what you think about grows. And that is very, very true. If you are constantly in contact with somebody who has really hurt you emotionally and even mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, whatever it is, that interaction is going to require you to stay in the moment. That's so important. Let me say that again. Contact with someone who hurts you makes you stay in the moment of the pain. Of course, there's going to be someone out there that says, what about forgiveness? And I say, okay, yeah, what about forgiveness? We're going to talk about forgiveness in a little bit. But first things first is understanding that if I remain in the same spaces that hurt me, I will always ignite the same burn. And so I have to put a stopgap. So distance yourself and get into a space where you really recognize, how do I feel about all of this? And that's really the third place, right? So if you've taken a moment to step back, you've taken the moment to say what you need to say on paper, you may be ahead of the game on this one. But if you haven't, if you've just reacted, you haven't allowed yourself to feel. You have to shut down for just a moment. You have to slow it down for just a moment. You have to force yourself to sit. Not shut down in a bad way, not block out, not force everything to the side, but instead do. It's self-sabotage and creates a worse experience when you go into this space of unworthiness and the space of not feeling, right? Like, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to do this. This isn't working for me. The situation is X, Y, and Z. It hurts more because we're just sort of delaying the pain. But if we will sit in it, say things like, I deserve to be happy, therefore I'm going to feel my feelings, and understand that the only way through anything is through it, then I will sit. It may not feel the best, but there is a legitimate experience with feeling. And of course, your feelings are not bad or wrong or even fact. They are just how you are connecting to the moment. You hurt me. What I heard that you did hurts. It is very hard to heal in the same place or around the same people who caused the pain. So cutting off contact, building that wall, holding a boundary for a little bit is okay. The next piece is to talk to someone who gets it, who gets you. And I don't mean in a way that your pain becomes the trashing mechanism of that person, because that doesn't help. But talk to somebody who understands how you feel, that gets that your pain is real. Talk to a therapist. Talk to someone who understands the situation, or someone who can step back and not take sides, because that gives you the ability to really hear your feelings through an unbiased lens. You know, if we call the best friend or call somebody who doesn't like the person that hurt you, what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get really harsh feelings. You're going to get this marching support, but it doesn't actually help you. What it does is just feel that, you're not alone. And that's okay too, but reach out to someone who can really give you some grounded, solid advice and consultation that may be insightful, that's practical, that doesn't make your feelings feel vague or heightened, but instead just listens, hears, and allows you to experience the experience while also giving you a different perspective. I know I did that. I made sure I didn't tell other people who are really close to them. I did reach out to one person who was close to them because we have mutual respect for one another and we challenge each other's thoughts often. And we did that for each other. And it was a really positive experience. Did it make me feel better? No, it didn't. And that's also very important. I want you to realize that sometimes when we talk about our feelings, when we do all of the right things, that it doesn't still give us resolution. And that's okay too. Okay? So remember that. And in that talking, in that communicating, we have to be very careful not to revel in the pain. Very important. When we consider ourselves victims or we revel in feeling the way that we do, we tend to drag up all of these past experiences where we use these moments as evidence to support our pain. You did this and you said that and you did this to that person, and now here I am and I'm standing in your firing line and I didn't think you would do it to me. And the past becomes the evidence, the present becomes the revel in moment, and you feel like shit, right? And so when we want to get past something, when we want to face a moment, we have to recognize the moment itself is over and what we're feeling is the revel in it. We're in the experience of how we're going to clean it up. We're looking for a path forward, but the experience itself, the action that caused everything, is likely to be over. Everything that happens after is a reaction to that moment. Does that make sense? It gets all lumped together, but it's very important to understand everything is separate. There's an umbrella to the experience, but all of the little separate moments are individual, and they should be addressed and looked at that way. You have to remember that dwelling on anything intensifies the pain, and we go back to the thought that what you think about grows. We also have to remember that the past cannot always be the blueprint for the future. Sometimes people do things that are really out of character. And while behavior is king, we also have to remember that if something comes from left field, it may be that it was just out of left field. Somebody acted out of how they don't normally act. They're not supporting their values, their belief system. They're really just having this out of body, out of mind experience, and you just happen to be in the way of it. Is that the case? Remember that you're always evolving and changing. At least that's what I hope that you're doing. I'm sure while you're here listening to this podcast. And if you're always changing and elevating yourself, doesn't that mean that someone else is out there doing it too? That person that hurt you? Let's hope that that's just the case. That their change, their thoughts, that what they're doing hasn't caught up. Again, the past is important. It has many lessons. But remember that you have within your power and influence to move past and not revel in the things that caused you pain. The next piece is going to be one of those things that is extremely hard for most people. I know it was hard for me, and I had to give myself a moment to stop and really take some moments with this thought and allow myself to be okay with this truth. You will not always get an apology for when people hurt you. And if you're waiting for a real apology from a person who hurt you, you're probably going to be waiting for a really long time. So stop depending on that. If you hand over your feelings and ask somebody to care for them, they're going to care for them in the way that best suits them. You've heard me say that before. But if your well-being depends on someone else giving you a guaranteed sorry, your well-being is going to be flushed. It's a no. Somebody may never say that they're sorry for what they did. They may never actually agree that they did anything to begin with. It's so difficult. The best way to get over someone who hurt you is to stop thinking of them as a source of your well-being or your healing. They have their own lives. They may be sorry, they may not. But if you wait around and extend emotional energy hoping for them to give you something, you're wasting your time and you're hurting yourself. So you have to stop waiting for that apology. You have to set your own internal and external boundaries and not allow someone else to confirm your good feelings. What can you do for yourself? The next thing, and this is a really difficult thing too, it's something that I know I personally struggled with when we were talking about this situation I've been talking about this whole time, and it's to ditch the need to be right, right? We want to make sense out of things. It's the way our brain works. But in doing that, in being right or the better person, we limit ourselves. Because we keep ourselves in the box of, this is how I would do this if I were in that person's shoes. That really hampers our behavior and our thought process because we're trying to get someone else to embody our qualities. And that doesn't work, right? They're going to show up the way that they show up. So when someone hurts you, you have to not try to be the hero in the story, but instead just say, this is what they did. Here are my facts. They did this, I did that. They did this, I did that. We can learn from the various spaces of how we showed up, but if there's a hero and a victim, we're really looking for the tragedy. We're looking for the misunderstanding. We're looking for all the things that get in the way of our healing. So ditch being right. Ditch being good or the hero in the story, because that's not the emotional space you want to come from. You simply want to know what happened. And then I want you to practice, this is really 8 in the list, radical acceptance. Radical acceptance means I'm willing to accept everything as it has been, as it happened. I don't have to like it. I don't have to love it. I don't think it's fair, but I do have to accept that that's what's been. It can be extremely upsetting. It can be extremely unjust to be in a position where you have to say, fine, this is what happened. I don't like it. But acceptance is the only way we begin the healing process. This happened. It sucks. I don't like it. But this is where I am. It allows us to take the judgment and the opinions out of the situation. It allows us to be okay with what is. Practicing that really takes a lot of effort. It is a practice, right? And it takes the ability to do the work and to allow yourself to hurt. Allow yourself to embrace the suck of the moment, because that's what it is. And in that, you may find that some of the facts lead to the fact that you may have made a mistake somewhere in all of it. And maybe the mistake is you trusted somebody too much. I know that's what it was for me. And so you have to forgive yourself for that. Whatever happened that led me to this heartache means that I was a willing party in the situation. Unless it's some random stranger, it's very likely that I still did something that caused the situation, the environment, that there was some kind of responsibility. It always takes 2 to tango, right? And we have to be objective in our mistakes. And if you're well-intentioned and you're acting from a good, positive place, then you can forgive yourself for any missteps that you made and take note for them for the future, right? Like, I'm not going to blame myself for this happening, but I am going to make sure that I do not allow this to continue. If you stay focused in that victim trap, again, what you do is you begin to create this self-fulfilling prophecy that it will happen again. And then it begins to play out in your life. And you say things like, why does this always happen to me? Well, because you keep it going. So that's a very powerful thing, to take yourself out of being the victim and knowing that you can take those rose-colored glasses off at any time and decide, how much time and energy am I going to put into these situations? And when you know that, you can decide, where is my center again? Pain, shock, emotional jolts, as I like to call them, from anyone can make everything feel upside down. And the question becomes, where is center now? I'm going to repeat that. Where is center now? If you know where center is after the environment, after the experience, then you're allowing yourself to go back there. You don't have to chase anything. You don't have to self-sabotage or try to force, but just head right back into a space that feels good. It's okay. You're going to find new perspectives there. When things happen, all things change. And so you have to change what center looks like for you. You know what it feels like prior to the event. So what does it feel like now that the event has happened? New perspectives are so important. I always like to say, if you could take an environment, a situation, and split it down the middle, and on one side you put a black coating on it, and on the other side you put a white coating on it, the question is, can you flip those things? Can the bad things in the black column become the good things in the white column, and vice versa? And if you answer no, you need to go back to step one and start over again, because the answer is yes. You know, for me, one of the things that I recognized in my painful situation is I had given so much to this person that in many ways it had derailed me from things that I loved, things that I needed, things that were my personal goals. And it's not that I people pleased. It was more of I wanted to help this person so much that I did it at my own expense. Did he ask me to do a lot of those things for him? No, he didn't. I put myself in that space. And so, is that on me? Yes, it is. It is on me. And I have to find a new center. I have to know what I'm willing to do and what I won't do. And in that, I have to deal with the uncertainty. When you've been hurt, it definitely puts you into a space of not knowing what the destination looks like now. What happens? What's the aftermath? What does this look like? And the answer is, do you really have to have an ironclad path? The answer is no. Sometimes a situation happens and you are able to learn something from it. For me, it got me back on track. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the pain. Thank you for all the shit that you put me through. Because honestly, it was the experience I needed to make myself note what was really going on. It was the experience I needed to put me back on my own journey, on my own path. It was brilliant. Sucks, but it's brilliant. And I know you have experience like that too. I know you do, because we all do. And in that, you focus on what you can measure. You begin to focus on that gratitude. What do I have? I have my work and my mindset and my friends that really are there to make sure they have my back. I have my health. I have this beautiful community. What do you have? Do you have your family, your work, your dogs, your cats, your best friends, your spouse, whatever it is? What do you have? Make friends with that again. Connect with it again. Make sure that you understand that there is something for you. And then leave the hurt. Leave it. It was a time. It was an experience. You do not have to live in that experience all the time. You lose more respect for yourself More confidence is trashed. Self-esteem is really taken to task if you don't let go. If you put more time and thought process around your unworthiness and your pain, then guess what? That's what will be. Instead, remember that hard things happen. It's not easy to build your life without pain. It's a teaching mechanism. Without contrast, we do not know what we want. Without good, we do not know bad. Without dark, we do not know light. We need balance. We need to understand that people will do what best serves them. And that doesn't always have to feel the best for us. But we do not have to sit in suffering and misery and hope that the feelings are magically going to be going away, right? That they don't just poof and disappear into the air. You're going to be just fine, yes. But does it take work? Yes. You can do all things that you want to do. You can live in your own value and your own purpose-driven life, but understand things are going to happen. They will. It's the nature of life itself, and it's okay. When you understand that, you have given yourself the pathway forward to know that sometimes pain is going to be a part of your human experience. It just is. And it can be hard. It can make you feel like things are missing. It can make you doubt yourself. But at some point, you have to remember that if you want to love, if you're opening your heart, you have the ability to feel the burn of those things. Yes, it can be the worst feeling in the world, but the truth is there's something for you in it. And when you understand that, you truly give yourself the essential element to get your life together. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life, please subscribe and turn on notifications to be alerted each week when a new episode is released. And you can also get more inspiration and daily conversations on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, and now Threads. You can also visit my show notes and my blog, my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. There's courses and mini downloads there for you. I want to thank you once again for being such a brilliant and beautiful part of this community. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.